Hello everyone, and welcome to our latest presentation in the Stilo sponsored DITA Knowledge Series. I'm CEO of Stilo, and I'll be acting as moderator during today's session, where our guest speaker is Jackie Samuels, returning for a second time, I'm pleased to say. We'll be helped with organizational support and provide background by Helen's, our marketing manager. Before we start, I just need to mention a few housekeeping issues. Just to mention, all attendees will be muted for the duration of today's webinar, but feel free to submit your questions via the chat facility in your meeting window to Helen Owens, please. Helen will collect those throughout the course of the presentation, and we'll look to address as many of the questions as we can in the Q&A session at the end. Hopefully the presentation should last about 30 to 35 minutes. That's what it's scheduled for. So we'll be running a poll at the end of the session to gather feedback, and appreciate if you could spend a couple of minutes giving your comments, please. We do value them. And just to mention as well that today's webinar is being recorded, and we'll mail that link out to you in the next day or two as well. So I'd like to begin today's session by giving you a brief introduction to Stilo. Many of you may already appreciate that we specialize in automating the conversion of content to different XML formats, and in particular to the DITA format. With our cloud conversion service, it's being used by documentation teams around the world for conversion projects ranging in size from just a few books up to tens of thousands of pages. We've actually undertaken many successful DITA conversion projects with companies that you see listed here. A big differentiator for Stilo is that through the use of Migrate, we've been able to place authors in direct control of the conversion process, and thereby helping them to address what might otherwise be very complex and time-consuming conversion issues. She will be touching upon many of these issues, or some of these issues, today. So without further ado, I'll pass you across to Jackie. He's an independent consultant who'll tell you a little bit more about herself before presenting on the subject of bad conversions, how to avoid breaking the bank. Over to you, Jackie.
Chris, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So a little bit about me. I've been working with DITA content, first as an author and editor, and as a consultant for about the last 8 or 9 years. And I did it very early on in my career with DITA, so I sort of adopted it and wholeheartedly took it on board. I sort of specialize in content management systems and content strategy, but also specifically on working with pre-conversion content, which is what we'll be walking through today. I'm honored if you would connect with me on LinkedIn, or Twitter, or on Google+. You can reach at Jackie at writingwise.biz. And that means we have a lot of content to get through today, so without further ado. So, bad conversions all cost you time and money. The key really is clean up content before you convert, and I'll get into sort of the tricks around that in a couple of slides. First, for your analogy of the day, conversion is like organizing your mail. So what you do when you get your mail from your mailbox is to remove the flyers, throw out the junk. You keep only your bills, your invoices, your tax information, the stuff going to be important to you. You only deal with the documents that are important, and put those in your organizer. Then your organizer is just filled with the content that you need. If you filled everything, all the flyers, all the notices, bloated with content and needed documents, it's getting harder to clean that content up, harder to clean up the organizer, and harder to find the documents that are important to you, and harder to perform things with your content, like, say, sending information to your accountant. Is to avoid that conversion, you need to clean up your content first. Of any conversion has got to be, there's no question about it, got to be a good content strategy. The content is not something I'm going to talk about in detail today, but it rules how you convert. You need that director migration that you're converting well. The choice you make in pre-conversion are made with your strategy in mind, and there are lots of resources out there for getting your content strategy up and running. So good numbers here. I hope you can see this. If you can't, there's going to be a link at the end of the slideshow with this directly from my website. So I can't read it all. Don't worry about it too much. The estimates that I've created on my actual experience, so they're not gathered from a series of pre-conversion specialists or anything like that. This is experience, but based on dozens and dozens of conversions. First, take a look down at the bottom, 2.6. How much slower it is to convert content. Sorry, to work with your content after conversion. 200. Through sort of a couple of them here, identifying the correct topic types. Very fast pre-conversion, and it can be automated. Post-conversion, you have to go into each topic and make sure it converted correctly to the correct type, and then change it. So things like that make a big impact on the time and the effort. This isn't comprehensive, but it gives you the idea of sort of work that you could do and the difference between pre-conversion and post-conversion. And the difference comes in about 4 points here. The difference in because you can often script changes before it's converted. So you'd be running hundreds or thousands of FrameMaker files in minutes instead of having to go into each converted topic and slowly reworking it. So things in script is obviously going to be much, much faster. And just to pull up what I'm talking about, FrameMaker content, and have a note style you apply to anything that has a note. And great, but you've sort of somewhat inconsistently used it. So sometimes you typed in the word note and we apply the paragraph format or not. A lot of times it's a phrase, note that, or notice that, or something like that along those variations. And you haven't really applied it across the board. Well, you can fix all of those and remove typed in word or words and apply the right paragraph style all directly before you convert. And you can do that by using something like FrameScript. So you note that blah, 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 and if there was no paragraph to it other than sort of a normal paragraph, that's going to turn into a paragraph element. And that paragraph is not what you want. You want that to be a note element. To find, you have to go into them, each topic, and look for, obviously, search for your sort of folder of content as well, but it's much, much faster to apply programmatically before you convert. That it takes a lot more time to edit and work with and reorganize content once it's in elements and topics. For example, trying to move content from, say, an old list with list elements, so list item elements. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're trying to put them into a task. A task doesn't have an ordered and list item element. It has its own special set of elements. So you can't just copy paste. You actually have to go into each old element, copy content without copying the element, then create the new element and the new topic and your task topic and import content over that way. It's very time consuming. So if you're working with tables and data, it can take a lot of time to reorganize or modify them. It's much, much faster to work. Make your sweeping changes when you're working unstructured content. A clean conversion. So your big waster is going to be sort of when you have to switch one topic type to another. You've converted content as concept rather than a task. It takes forever to port that content over. You don't like I said, you have to create a new topic, you have to edit them, you have to remove the old topic graph, you have to add the new topic graph. It's just a lot of work. You must to clean up the content first and convert it cleanly. When you're content in the CMS, or you've applied single sourcing, you're to make those sweeping changes across the files. It's sometimes to do it anymore. You have to go into each check and work with them individually. And sort of, but people don't necessarily think about it. When it takes effort. It takes effort. You apply minimalism to the content before you convert. Actually converting fewer words and fewer topics. It's a bit like cleaning up your content for translation. If you have fewer words, it's going to cost you less money. Apply minimalism to your content before you convert. You take time to convert, and the content you are converting is so clean and lean and converts so nicely that you don't have to clean it up afterwards. All you have to do is make sure it converted the way you would, and voila, it's done. So it just makes sense to work on the content before you convert. Right, so some specifics here. Type is the big no-nos. You have a clear delineation between your concept asking your reference content. They have to convert it, start cleaning it up after conversion, and that's going to cost you a lot of money. So asking why do I need to have the content in the right topic type? It's for probably dozens of reasons, but your ability to reuse and single source content goes way once you've chunked by topic type. Importantly, your users have a way of finding and reading the content. It's always better. And of course, bite-sized information is easier to consume. You know, people do not like to read. So people, please check content. Okay, go into an actual example in Flickr. I'll see my frame maker here. I've got an unstructured frame maker that goes through the file menu of a product. It is an option in the file and has a bit of information after each one. Here's a little explanation of what this feature does. We just keep scrolling down. Hopefully this is in sync. A code example. And it's still inside the list or the ordered list that I've got. So all this code and stuff is inside this bullet point for load sequence. Even further, I've got a task. My unordered list. So let me show you what happens when you convert as is without making any changes, which people did just drives me absolutely nuts. So convert, right, it'll either convert as a generic topic or as a concept. That's exactly what you had. I've got an unordered list with content, all of my content inside that unordered list, which is my code is inside an LI, and the path, my elements, the paragraph is inside this list item, which is inside this unordered list. That is not where you want it to be. You never did it there. You use it there. Your mentions are a paragraph inside a list item, and my task is a paragraph inside a list item as well. And I've got a list of afterwards for the list above, the sort of the overarching list. That's functionality on this, you know, this way that's being documented. So I had a really good conversion. It canceled this task out and makes it a task. By the end, it's going to say, all right, well, you're part of the list. There's no need to get anything other than result when you're converting this particular content the way it's set. So let me go into what should have been done. The result you're trying to find is over here on the left-hand side. Hopefully you can see this. My chunked out into topics, a reference, a concept, a reference, and a concept, and there's my task. Let me each one a little bit. I just want to point out that the bad conversion is still valid. You can see the green box here in in which it says it's perfectly fine markup. There's nothing wrong with it. You won't get an error during conversion. With that, it's a bad conversion. You can't leverage the content this way. Chunk topics, a couple. Description of the file options, which is sort of a necessary evil sometimes, where you just simply have to have it. I've chunked it out into a table because that's where it's most useful. Somebody can just quickly along the fun side, look across and see the show. This could all be converted as a definition list if that was more appropriate. Concept, stand on its own about load sequencing in general, and then a topic under that where I've got my code. And the topic explains where, so there's the file path and sample code, and that's much more appropriate in a reference topic instead of inside a generic topic, inside a list item, inside a pair. It's just crazy. So ask, this will look like I will be able to leverage these elements that will ask. I don't in an ordered list inside a list item inside a topic. I'm sitting in a task as it should be. This and it takes a little bit of reorg. So I moved content around, I added a table, I added some headings, I just cut and pasted this right out, moved it at the bottom, and made this running a test sequence heading. I got a nice clean conversion out of it. A little bit of edit, a little bit of rewrite, and it was very quick. The elements, topics, I mean, it just takes a lot longer. Let me switch and on to tasks. Right, so tasks. Oops. The benefits of the data model is that your content becomes clear, and much easier to use. I've broken out into two main things that you can do with tasks that make the conversion much better. And applying focus. Benefits are, the data benefits. It's easier to convert, easier to single source, easier to translate, and easier to read and use. Define minimalism a bit. Minimalism, as I understand it, and there are different definitions out there. So minimalism is providing the information in the right format. So you provide just the information people need to get through the task. All of the options, you provide the best way of doing something. So all of the extra words is enough information for them to understand the task and complete it. An unnecessary word. For tasks that lack appropriate focus, it's often you see the content is sort of based on the product. So somebody has a widget or a window or a form, and they're docking that object in the UI. And that's where you get tasks that lack appropriate focus. Let me move on to some examples. So minimalism. I've here slowly. There's a little bit here. It doesn't even look like a task, right? Looks like a concept with a couple of settings, maybe. Oh, no. It's actually a task. If you read it, there's in here to view that there's a result, something happens as a result. There are other steps. There's a prerequisite that's up here. There's a tip about including members' up-to-date address. If you can do this as is, a concept with two sections or three concepts, one section, two child concepts. If you happen to have caught the fact that this is a task and you added some steps so that at least it's formatted correctly, it'll convert to tasks, you'd have sort of the concept here and then task. But I mean, there's information up here that is required as part of the task below. The prerequisite information and the hint about including the up-to-date address, That belongs in the task. You're going to get bad conversion no matter what if you don't apply minimalism to the content. And there are things here, one for e-access and one for paper form. And I'll show you what I did with those. Just notice the two, and they're almost exactly the same. The task with minimalism applied. Notes here, so if I miss something, I might have to go back. But of course, 1, 2, 3 now with my sub list. The content is clean, it's lean, it's easy to access, easy to find, because when you get there, you know what it's about, rather than the title that was in this one. Set up here. It's marked as a prerequisite. This is still unstructured, by the way. So I had the right formatting. I did prereq. Here, this very little bit of information about this particular step. It's not on the same line as the step itself. It's extra information, and it has its own format. That means that it converted correctly to info element. So knowing what it's going to convert it to is very important. Knowing what the data model says you should do with your content is essential when you're doing this pre-conversion work. So you need at least very familiar with, if not an expert. Result down here, result of a particular step, and that's step number 2. Then a different result down here, which is actually a result of the entire task. And I've used a different paragraph format to that to make sure it converts correctly to a task result. When there's somebody on the line that I can hear, I don't know if you can hear them. So sounds like a good dinner. Someone muted. That's okay. So go to my notes for a sec, make sure I mentioned everything. Right, translated the two tasks into one simply by adding this one line about downloading a paper form. So the first way is accessing it online, and that's the way out, and that's why I did that as the step. And the paper form, the old way of doing it that they really don't want people to do, go after that step. It doesn't have to be two tasks. I mean, you might say, okay, people are always going to do it one way or another, and you can do conditional content and create custom documentation for each type of user, but in this case, it's one of the options for accessing the form. Minimalism to content, take it from this unholy of unable content and necessary duplication of content to a non-sensitive content with the correct format applied that will convert easily to data. And let me show you what it converts to. No problems. Everything's in the right element. I've got short description up there. My prereq converted right there. I've got my context, which is that just information about the steps. I've got looking out result converted perfectly. So this is important because like create content for mobile output. So you're reusing your content and publishing to mobile. You might want to hide all of the info for mobile users because it's taking too much space and it's not ideal. But you get step results because sometimes those are really, really important in your content. You can do it now by the right content in the right element. You can leverage it. If you have here in the command element, you'll be able to leverage it at all. It would just always be there. So it's important to get content in the right element. To task that lacks focus. Hold on 1 second. Okay, task that lacks focus. Sort of a typical piece of content. You've got a preamble, nothing wrong with it. You've got some steps, great. Good little liner introducing the fact that it's a task that can be automatically in data. You don't need to actually include it. Minimalism would say just take that sucker out. And then we're into a table. Okay, so you need a table and a task. Ideally, this table would be taken out of here, but keep scrolling down because, oh, look at that. We have an entire subtask, and this is not substeps to a step. This is an actual subtask inside a table, inside a task step. This leverage your content. And in fact, this would turn out to be an ordered list inside a table. It wouldn't be step at all in DITA if it was converted like this. And whole task down here, and there's a step of the actual task at the end. What I call a task that doesn't have focus. It's trying to cover too much content in one spot, and it's too much on the instead of the user needs, what the information the user needs. Still, this is what we're for in the cleanup before conversion. You got that actual task, which was modifying the notifications rule, and it would be there, but instead of including all of that information that was in the table and all of those sub-tasks, just become properties. And you have a related reference that details those properties, like we had earlier with the table that had the description of the functionality and then the functionality. So you just minimize it. And then my two that were inside the table become their own task. What you do is create the heading and content over in unstructured frame. In structured, we're looking at creating whole new topics and porting the content over to your map. It just takes a lot longer. With not just new tasks, but also a new concept, explaining vocabulary, and any other number of sort of sub or topics. So you focus the content more. I am a little short on time, so let me keep moving. Or another pain spot. Talking about mostly structurally complex tables, really hard to convert properly. You spend a lot of time trying to get them to convert properly. Sometimes it's going to be the time to simplify your tables if you need them before time to get them to convert correctly. It's a decision process of do tables that are complex. If so, then should they be complex or can they be simplified? If it's simplified, do that, and then your conversion will go nice and smoothly. If it can't be simplified, they simply have to stay as is for whatever reason. And you have options, and it depends how many of these complex tables you've got. Stock 5 of these tables in your 1,000 files, then it's going to be okay to manually clean them up after the conversion. Even drop from conversion completely, they'll just poof disappear sometimes. You can just go in and build them manually afterwards. For 5 tables, that'll take you a day and a half, and you'll be all right. If you have 500 of these tables, that'd be an option. It's not going to be an effective option anyways. What you need to do is find a way to get that conversion to work properly for those 500. So the first step is always simplify, and absolutely do it because it's going to save you some time down the road. So let me start an example. What I mean by complex table. So a table with parts. It's got an upper level table heading and then a subheading. And then subheading, some content in between, great. And then another sort of category by which they are organizing this information. One or two in a row. This table is not the way you want it to in DITA. DITA does support these multiple categories inside a table. These should be separate tables by DITA standard. And that's one of your options here, is to simply split them apart. Sometimes you can do that automatically as part of the conversion process. But these tables exist, plan to convert that way, or simply break them up so the conversion itself doesn't need to get more complicated. Let me switch view. Sorry about that. So here's our table. Span of rows and columns, vertical text along the left-hand side. Show you this. This upper left-hand side is spanning not just rows but also columns. Very difficult, and it's actually the table title. It couldn't be inside the table. We've got the same, different title. So it is just barely convertible in DITA. You do the vertical text. You need to set an attribute on the cells for the vertical text, and do the same rows and columns, sort of. I don't think you'd want to keep this title up in the top left-hand corner at all. You take it out. But what becomes possible about this as a conversion is that this is actually one invisible table around these two tables, and they've converted that way. Did it really support tables within tables? Not in a way that don't go there. It's a bad idea. There'd definitely be two separate tables, each with the table description the table as well. So we definitely want to work on before conversion. The format in the top left-hand corner here is something of the Asian market. They use this often to organize their content in a table like this, and it's not just 3 sort of pie sections that they'll use, up to 7 or 8. I open an office now to DITA. The way to do this in DITA, not at this time anyways, until the Asian market and the DITA market sort of combine and hit each other. Probably will be a way in the next 5 years, but right now you have to figure out some other way of this table. And I think I'll go through this quickly. This is a table that can't change. This is a standard in the where all the tables look like this. Do is sort of split version so that all of this, you can see that here it's a whole row. It does. It's on a by cell basis. You want to make it included in your version, or you take this right-hand side one out completely of the table. Don't even include it. It shouldn't really be there, but it's the standard in the standard and has to in this case. But you know that this, just setting up the formatting, no matter what you do, that's going to take a lot of time to do manually. So the heading here is over here and compared to over here. That means these ones over here on the left are spanning 1, 2, 3 over here, and somehow they're in the middle. And there's a line between. It's going to be a mess to set up. Have 500 of these is going to be worth time to do it during conversion. If you have them, it might be worth your to rework the content before conversion. Here's another down. Oops, sorry. Have a footnote in what looks like 2 tables, but then it has one title. In fact, the client was insisting that this is one table. Well, for all, you can't have a footnote in the middle of your table. It has to go at the bottom. And DITA. So, and look over here, this content in these cells, it doesn't line up with the ones above. It's sort of missing a cell over here that it's not spanning. This has to be chunked out as 2 tables in DITA to make it one table. The last one now, complex conditions. And I'll have a very short example. So DITA is fairly simple condition processing. If you've ever worked with SQL, it has much more complex signal processing than DITA has. Once content is tagged, it's either in or it's out. There's no logic available. You can't say, if this condition and this condition, then not, then this one. There's just nothing complex like that. It's either in or it's out. You can't tag on an element, but I would things get very sticky and quickly. What you're for is tag for content in pre-conversion, so it'll convert to one DITA attribute value on an element. Energy is what's going to be driving this. You're looking to consistent of tags, so your attribute values don't need to be cleaned up afterwards. That'll take a lot of time to find the ones that you need to clean up. Use the same conditional tags in your unstructured content. It'll convert to the same attribute value in the content, which is a very good thing. You can also use this time to the subconditions can be left behind completely. That was an old version of content that you no longer have to leverage. Just it. And part of the conversion can just be ignore this condition, but you have to know what they are ahead of time. It's also possible to convert things like internal comments. So you're using a condition to talk from author to author, or an author's trying to remember something for edit. Those can be gotten rid of completely and converted to draft comments instead. Comment is an element rather than a conditional piece of content. And bookend or as per conversion. Let me just a very, very quick example of what I mean by a complex condition. A little ridiculous happens. Started out with this one, which is just okay. I only want this in the PDF, and this doesn't belong to feature B, and this is only for feature Z, and then the whole thing, so the same piece of content, the whole thing got conditionalized for product A because it's sort of a mix and match. You get a point where you literally will not be able to convert this to DITA. Okay, can have this to turn into a phrase element with a condition on it, the phrase inside an element. Inside, so it would be a lista probably. That phrase element came inside what would be this phrase element. You can't have elements, you're limited in that way. You can't have a hierarchy inside an element like this. It does not will convert. So you need to clean up your conditions before. All right. There we go. Summary. I have shown you, I've illustrated that pre-convert can save you time and money. So the theory here is that if it's garbage in, it's garbage out. Your addition should be more than just about putting the single bracket around your content. And it's 3% faster, 260% faster to rework your content before conversion. Here are the resources. Pre-post conversion comparison, so that metrics at the beginning. It's available on my website at that URL. And interesting DITA resources there that you may not have heard of yet. They're fairly new. And I think that's all left.
Yeah, I think we'll go on to Q&A now. And yes, for that. We have a few questions that have been raised, and I'll try to pose them to you now. So first one, a little bit to one side. What suggestions do you have for converting XML content elements stored in a CMS to a DITA version?
Okay, you've got sort of some other sort of XML CMS, and you need to convert it to DITA.
Sounds good. Sounds like XML to DITA. Yeah.
So there are XML to XML conversions, but it does take rework of the content to make sure it'll map correctly from the old elements to the DITA elements. Just take a look at content really to give a good sort of explanation of how you'd go about doing it. But it is possible to do element conversion.
Yeah, I can add that in Stilo. We do quite a bit of that as well. So
right.
It's more of a sort of a services, I guess, tasking, really. Another question, how did the task topic know it was a task topic? What specific FrameMaker tag?
It was not. The task topic was a heading 1 for the title, and it's just going to sound silly, but it depends on the conversion method that you're using. So, for example, automatically can tell which topic type you've got, just content that you have. If you're doing it through a different conversion specialist, like Publishing Smarter, which is my primary employer, what they do is identify the topic type just before conversion, and sort of a manual process of tagging it as task, reference, or concept beforehand. So different ways of doing it.
Okay, another one. You showed using oxygen in the mixed info types example. Could you use the same entirely in FrameMaker? Yeah, you showed using FrameMaker and oxygen in the mixed info types example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you do the same entirely in FrameMaker?
Yeah, I just wanted to switch between the two.
Okay.
For my own benefit.
Another one, I noticed that link to download a paper form within the step. Isn't it better not to have inline links and to save that for a table?
Now, that was a link not to another topic, which is, I agree, should be in a rel table, but the link to actually download the form that you needed. And yes, it should be directly in that step. Opinion for there, but I don't think that should be in a rel table. It's one of the few inline links that I think is allowable. Your user to click on a specific spot. It doesn't take them, it should open up a new page and get into another topic in the content, takes them to a specific place on the internet.
Okay. Can complex conditions be handled by metadata instead?
Are always handled by metadata. If you've got complex conditions, then metadata is going to get messy. So, sort of a watch out situation.
Okay. There's another question I'm not quite sure about. In regard to minimalism, I have instances of text that I believe could be minimalized, but it has been requested by various SMEs. How would you best handle this situation?
How do the SMEs who don't want to minimalize content? Is that the question?
I think it is.
You have to drive them with donuts. Is that not the answer? No. What you need to do is get actual metrics and feedback from your users. Say, here's a piece of content without minimalism. Here's a piece of content with minimalism. Which do you prefer? And, feedback from the 100 people if you can. 2 or 3 would also work. Any feedback at all to prove that it's more usable once you've applied minimalism. Translating your content. Donuts don't hurt though. Translating your content should literally be, hey, fewer words, it's going to be cheaper. Like, let's just go ahead and apply minimalism to the pure metrics of translation.
Right.
But it also just becomes more usable once it's applied.
Okay. I think that's it as far as all the questions are concerned. So I'm just being having that confirmed by Helen. So thanks, Jackie. I'll just finish today's session by running through another couple of slides.
Indeed. Here we go.
Yeah, so it's quite like, I hope that as far as conversion is concerned, that we haven't served to put many people off. There are a lot of issues with conversion, but we find it interesting. We actually find it fun doing this. And yeah, which is a surprise to a lot of people. There's nothing quite like looking at your own sample documentation to get a better feel for some of the issues and to better understand your content. And so what we continue to do is to offer a free document analysis and conversion service, really. So those who might be interested, if you want to provide us with a sample document, say up to 20 or 30 pages, it could be FrameMaker, it could be Word, whatever, InDesign, RubberHelp, then we'll convert it to data using Migrate. And we'll review the output with you and share observations on the content via a WebEx session typically. and then give you the output for your own evaluation and testing services. But it does help you to better understand some of the issues that you're dealing with. Also, I think that we'll just raise your attention to the next webinar that we're doing in the Knowledge Series, which is a demonstration of the Migrate Cloud Conversion Service. As I mentioned earlier, we can, I guess, several of the issues that Jackie's raised today, pretty efficient way using Migrate, and we can look at some of those complex issues that Jackie raised and see how we might be able to solve them. So we'll do the next session in a couple of weeks' time. We'll show a real-time conversion taking place for FrameMaker to Ditto. We'll show how, if you do get something wrong up front, then you can actually reconvert in real time and tweak it in real time without being a developer. You can do that as an author or as a writer, and actually improve the quality of your conversion as you go along. And then we'll use some custom metrics as well from our own customers, real-life examples of outsourcing options versus in-house options versus Stilo Migrate, which for many people is quite a different option when looking at conversions. So hopefully you'll be able to join us then. So I'd just like to sort of wrap up today's session by thanking Jackie again for her contribution. I hope the attendees have found that useful. Thank you, Jackie, for doing that. And I'd just appreciate if you could spend a couple of minutes, please, just completing the poll. And hopefully we'll see you all again soon, and hopefully in a couple of weeks' time. So thanks very much, and bye for now.